My guest today is Mary Lagakis Engel, and she is the founder and CEO of The Management Coach. For over 10 years, Mary's been advising, consulting, and coaching leaders and managers on effective management and how to grow their businesses while continuously engaging their employees. She is the coach businesses and individuals go to for personal, private, and powerful performance transformation. Now, that's my professional introduction of Mary, but I've got to ask her an important question because I'm such a cat lover. What are your two Bengal cats like? I've never had a Bengal cat.
Oh, they are hilarious. So they are their brother and sister. They're actually half brother and sister. Their names are Hunter and Ivy. And Ivy was the runt of her litter. So she got paired with Hunter's mom. And the two of them have been inseparable since birth. They're born 2 days apart. And one moment, they're best friends snuggling together on the couch, and the next moment, they are ripping each other's fur out. So, if that gives you any indication of how they operate together, I think that describes a Bengal, aside from the fact that they like to play in water, that they like to chat with you and make some fun noises. And Ivy is the one we call the aggressive snuggler.
Well, isn't it funny that I have two Siamese cats and they do the same thing? They cuddle all day long, but eventually they pick a fight. And it's interesting that the little one, who is 5.5 pounds, never starts it. It's the 9.5 pound one that starts it, but the 5.5 pound ends it. So it's really interesting. Well, now let's get to what Mary has to say about her professional life. So you do a lot of work with people who are managers, and managing is not an easy thing to begin with. I mean, people dream of being a manager, and then when they get there, they think, oh my gosh, what did I wish for? So what do you find is the single biggest problem that managers face and their biggest mistake?
Yeah, and they face so many problems. So let me see if I can pare it down to just one thing. I think the biggest problem that the managers are facing today is um, there's a certain level of restriction that they feel. They are being pulled in so many different directions by so many different people, and it actually, to some degree, paralyzes them. And this is something that I find with my clients when they come to me is they actually don't know what they're supposed to be doing, what they're supposed to be focusing on, how they're supposed to be behaving with people, and it becomes stressful for them.
Well, do you think, though, that's because they haven't been trained properly? Have they not been given instructions as what their responsibilities are? I mean, why would I get to a position of being a manager if I didn't know what I was supposed to do? Or do I just kind of get there because I've done a good job and I get promoted?
Yeah, and that actually takes us to the biggest mistake. So what happens is people get promoted to manager based on personality and sometimes based on heroics, their ability to sort of transcend the chaos and still be able to do good work. And they get to the role of manager and they aren't particularly skilled at the management techniques that make things easier. So they've been working in a technical role, they've been doing great work, they're smart at what they do, and then they move into a role where they're placed in a group of people that they now have to lead, and nobody has actually given them that training. So the issue being that they're promoted based on personality, and now they're in a position where they evaluate others based on their personality, and now we get the confusion between performance and personality that then starts to create chaos. Because until you can actually clarify your role in terms of expectations in the business, we're really just resorting to personality. That's an area that a lot of organizations overlook. So I'll just give you a quick illustration. So you're a manager, I have a client, she just received a promotion to manager. She was given a 5 bullet point job description. And it said, you need to supervise employees, you need to manage daily reports, and a few other little bullets like that. So we looked at it, and she came to our call overwhelmed and completely confused and not understanding what was required. She also had a group of people who were her peers and who were about to be led by her, and was a little worried about how she was going to make the transition. And so then she enters a cloud of chaos. There are so many things to do. All of them appear to be equal priority, and the stress actually causes her to become less effective and to make less effective decisions.
Well, it's interesting because I have a friend who was one of the top sales managers, the top sales manager in a Fortune 100 company, and he was asked to be promoted. Oh, I don't know, half a dozen times, and he would never take the promotion because he said, "I would make a lousy manager. I'm a great salesperson, but I don't like to do anything that you have to do as a manager." So, first of all, it's very important to know, is that some position that you should be in? But another question would be, did the company hire you to coach this person, or did she hire you personally?
So, this particular example, the company hired me, and it was actually a former client of mine. So, one of my coaching clients it ended up getting this position in a new company and suggested that this new manager start working with me so that we could get her moving along more quickly.
Yeah, I think, I really think it's when somebody is put into a new position, I don't care whether it's a senior VP position, everybody needs training. Everybody needs to know what the job entails. Everybody needs to understand what their responsibilities are, what their goals are. And I don't think companies do a very good job of that. So, what are some of the challenges you can expect to face in making the transition? And what are some of the simple ways to get over them?
Great. Love that question. All right. Making the transition. Um, so the first thing that comes to mind is the training piece. Now, we know that the statistics say that when you go for training and you attend courses and workshops, we expect to see about 30% implementation. So one of the things coming out of the training is that the manager actually has to be quite disciplined to implement the things that they learned in the training workshops. The rest of the research shows that when a manager goes through training and then has accountability follow-up with a coach or mentor-like person, that implementation and success rate increases to about 60 to 70%.
Well, I strongly agree. I mean, I happen to think coaches are very necessary. Well, let's put it like this: good coaches are very necessary. But how do you think all of this impacts women in business and leadership?
Women face an interesting situation in the work environment. So if you think about it as uh, how women typically approach their work environment, first of all, that a woman would actually pursue a promotion and achieve it is great cause for celebration in itself. There's lots of research that we've seen that says men will tend to look at a job and say, I could totally figure that out. Women tend to look at a job and say, I haven't developed those skills yet. I'll apply when I'm ready. So the fact that they would get there and take a managerial position is in and of itself great cause for celebration. Once
Wow,
they're there,
that's
yeah,
interesting. So interesting.
yeah. Once they're in the role, I do believe that the challenges are very similar to what men would face. Uh, However, I think women take a different perspective in how they're being evaluated. So women will look at both how they show up in a room in terms of behavior, as well as producing results and outcomes for the organization. Because, and I don't know if your listeners have seen the Dove Real Beauty campaigns, but there are some really great ones out there on YouTube that show the perceptual bias that occurs between men and women, where
Yeah, I love those commercials. I think they're great.
yeah, exactly. So where a man will be considered assertive, a woman would be considered aggressive, even
Well,
though
I
they're
think that's
saying
true.
the
I
same
think
thing.
that's true, Mary, don't you?
I do think it occurs, especially in organizations that haven't evolved their thinking. And I think sadly that's many, many, many organizations. But one of my goals is actually to help people evolve their thinking. That's one of the big things that I do with my clients is challenge their conventional thought patterns.
Well, now, we as women, we were fighting for equality in the workplace and void of sexism and so forth. And but how do we overcome this in our personal lives?
How do we overcome equality in our personal lives? Um, there are a few things that are going on today that are important for women to really be assertive and strong about. I do think there's still a bias towards women caring for their children, and particularly in the U.S., there was news out just the other day about changes happening. I believe it was in England around the paternity leave or the parental leave, as they call it. Now, many countries are moving towards a system where parental leave is shared, that men, just as equally as women, can receive certain amount of time off uh, when they have a new baby. And the article specifically calls out the US, where not only do men not get that parental leave, but women who get the parental leave actually get relatively short amount of time compared to other countries in the world. So if we're going to start somewhere around equality, let's start at the root fundamental human place of rearing children.
Well, that's so true. I married a man with two children, and I can tell you that he took care of them. I mean, he was the caretaker, and what he did to get those kids to nursery school and to eating and all the things plus keeping a job was not the easiest thing in the world. I married him when they were just like tiny, so I they're my kids too, but it was just an interesting happening. And I think that we're behind in a lot of things. I mean, many countries have women who are presidents or leaders or whatever they call them. We don't. We're behind in child care. I mean, there's a lot of things we're behind in. I mean, I don't want to live anywhere else, but there are a lot of things that we could do a better job with. So you've also, as a person and as a coach, been known to discuss the concept that business is personal and that we have to stop believing that it's not. So tell us about your thought process there.
Mm. Yeah, business. So people show up to business, their work environments every day. And I have seen the group of people that show up to work and they leave their personal lives at the door and they go through work and then they go home and they focus on their personal lives, but they allow business to come home with them, which to me is a little bit backwards. So if we say that business is allowed to spill into our personal lives, but personal lives can't spill into business, I have a fundamental issue with that. Because at the end of the day, every day, it's people that show up to the business environment. And those people can't actually leave their personal baggage behind because their personal lives is fundamentally part of them at the cellular level, which includes their personality, which includes how they behave, which includes what they say. All of that comes into the office. And when somebody shows up in a meeting and starts talking and starts asking questions and starts discussing and debating and confronting and arguing and all of that stuff, what's happening is all of their personal experiences, all of their personal filters, all of their personal fears wishes, guilt, all of that personal stuff is